it's really easy to jump into the wrong story.
Yeah.
And then you're like 6 months in and you have sunk cost fallacy.
Sure.
And you're like, oh God, whether this is a doc, it's a book, it's what any huge endeavor, right? Like, were you careful before committing? What were the steps that you took to decide that you were going to go all in and dedicate years of your life to creating this thing? What was that kind of very pre-production aspect like?
Another great question. I right away didn't want to do it. When Angela asked me, I was interested in the story fundamentally because it checks all the boxes of things I really like, but I just knew I wasn't the right person for it at the time. I had just come off of my senior year in film school where Free Solo won the Academy Award, and the documentary world was finally looking at adventure and sports filmmaking with a lot more credibility. And here I had this person who was aiming to achieve an equally audacious, near impossible feat of crossing an ocean alone and unassisted. And she was unlike any protagonist I had seen ever in these films that I, religiously watched, all the climbing things, anything. Here's a 60-year-old, overweight, paraplegic, super out gay, like very crude, inappropriate sense of humor. I mean, all the things that you'd never add into the soup of a person, she had it all. And something about that was incredibly alluring to me.
She'd kick Alex Honnold's ass.
Oh my gosh, probably. And then make a hilarious joke about it and everyone would be friends. But so there was something about Angela specifically that I wasn't so sure about the film, but I just liked her. And I was like, I don't know if I want to make this, but I just want to still be your friend and like root for you through this process. So it started with me saying, look, I don't know that I am ultimately the right filmmaker for you, but I'd love to help you figure out who the right people are to get in touch with. And she said, sure, why don't you come down to Long Beach? Deb, her partner, is out of town. I'll show you the boat. We'll walk through everything. So I drove down to Long Beach, had the best day ever. We ended the night like drinking beer in her hot tub, and it was just like so cool to hang out with her. And
how old were you at the time?
I was 22.
Wow.
I mean, I was like a baby out of school. This is like a month after I graduated. And I was waitressing part-time. I was cleaning people's boats part-time. I was working at the farmer's market part-time. I was just hobbling together a living. And Angela said to me, I think it was that evening, and she said, what do I have to do to get you to work with me full time? And I was like, well, I'm just torn a lot of different directions. I'm applying for jobs right now. I don't know what I'm doing next in life. And she said, what if I pay your next 2 months rent? Key to the story. And I thought, that sounds pretty good, actually. That eliminates a huge stressor for me right now. And yeah, I could totally drive down several days a week and film with you and just capture verite and us hang out. So she did exactly that. My rent wasn't anything too crazy, but it really made such a big difference. And for her, it was, I wasn't earning any kind of salary doing this, and we had no budget. It was just my gear that I owned personally. So from there, we were able to hobble together a 5-minute sizzle on what it was. And then with that sizzle, I was confident we were going to get some attention for her from Yetis and Patagonias. I thought it would make a great 20-minute branded thing in the meantime as like an interim piece. And then eventually when it needed to grow up and be a big film, then it could do that thing. So we got a nonprofit sponsorship, got some money from that, got a crowdfunding campaign going shortly thereafter. I was able to onboard a little bit more crew. I mean, very gradually it grew, nothing crazy.
What was the nonprofit?
It's called Angel City Sports. They're based here in LA, and it's an amazing nonprofit that Angela worked very closely with, focused on adaptive athletes. Okay. So they just sent, 30 athletes to the Paralympics last summer, and many placed gold, and they're just kicking ass.
Right. So you were able to write a proposal to them, show them the sizzle.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so they partnered as our nonprofit partner on the film.
Great. Yeah. We're going to talk more about the sizzle.
Sure. Yeah.
because so many storytellers and documentary filmmakers get stuck because they're just like, I don't have the money. I don't know how to go get the money. And for you to take this project in stages and take money in stages is something that I want to dig into a little bit more, because that projects die if you can't pay your rent. Right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And so when it comes, I think that when you can produce a single asset like that sizzle, it can have this compounding value effect.
Yeah.
Right? Like there can be single things that you make that maybe only take you a week or two to make that then last for a really long time.
100%.
And it sounds like that sizzle was that thing.
Yeah.
So, what did that sizzle consist of? How did you go about making it? And I'm gonna, so let's just, because you're shooting this all yourself, right?
Yep.
So describe what a day down there with Angela would look like to come across, to get the sizzle, and what you were going for when you were trying to make this sizzle.
It's an excellent question. I wish I remembered a little more specifically what's in the sizzle right now, but it's a day with Angela. I'd show up. Her house is usually kind of a mess with something going on. She always had a project going on. So for example, if it was a day that she was vacuum sealing food to put in the boat to store it, then she would be busy with that project, and there'd be snacks everywhere, and I'd just fire up the camera. And Angela is so intuitive on camera. That was another thing, is it's rare you meet someone who translates to 2 dimensions so cleanly and like isn't weird about it, and just was made for the camera.
She knows what you need.
She knew exactly. It was very effortless. We were in a choreography together that felt immediate. So yeah, I'd be documenting whatever this project was. And so just everything she did was harder for her by virtue of being a paraplegic. So like, oh shit, I forgot this in the car. Let me go out to get it. There's a 5-minute commute from her kitchen table to the driveway of just maneuvering all of that. And so all of those little moments that we take for granted, I was very curious to document. This is what adds up. And she's just very lovely. I mean, she's a good narrator of things, but she also knows when to be quiet. So a lot of that was capturing what it feels like to be around her personality. And then at one point we did an overnight row to Catalina Island together, which is the most seasick I have ever been in my whole life. Puked 9 times. She got Thai curry pizza before we left. I mean, just mean. That was so mean.
She wanted to see if you could hang for the real thing.
Exactly. But that proved amazing footage for the sizzle, because you have to give people a sense of what is this going to actually be when you're out in your little spaceship in the water. So yeah, we had, I think, if I'm thinking correctly, the sizzle, it was get to know Angela, give people a sense of why they should love her as much as I love her, demonstrate why her being a paraplegic is this added variable of difficulty, and illustrate what ocean rowing is. So it was like those 3 things I remember being really specific goals. And then once I felt like we had enough to go off of it, I mean, it was a 5-minute video. It just kind of pieced together with some nice music and a couple good catchy lines of Angela here and there. And boom, that's that. Like, you really have to get your point across very cleanly and very quickly. And you're right. It is, you cannot get something made without a sizzle. Or I don't know of something that's gotten made without a sizzle. It not only proves to you that you have a film there as the filmmaker, but it proves to other people that your filmmaking technique is of a capability to convey this appropriately. Sure. So yeah, it's essential in the process.
Okay. So did you edit the sizzle?
I did.
Okay. So you edited it.
Yep.
It has all these little components in it.
Yep.
And through that process, Angela's one of the best characters on camera that I've ever seen in a documentary film.
Yeah.
Like, you could have been way worse at storytelling and this thing probably still would have worked. Like, when I was watching this thing the other night, I was like, oh my God, like, it's just she's such a fucking good character.
Yeah, totally.
That she's just like compel, like you just want to keep seeing her exist, like, and do the things that she's doing. And was it during that point that you're like, okay, if I get the money to make this thing, I'm totally down? When was there a moment where it like switched for you from like ambivalent to excitement?
I think it was when we got Angel City Sports and that first chunk of money, because then I was like, oh my God, it's happening. This is not just this invisible thing. You feel the validation, you know, but at this point we've nurtured, you know, a friendship over a couple months, and I'm too hooked to go anywhere now. Like, I have to see what happens next. And so for me, it was, okay, I'm in, I'll be your filmmaker. I'm not going to make a feature, but, you know, a good 20 to 30 minute thing that's going to really get the point across. We're going to make this really good. So, that was it. Okay.
So you got the first chunk.
Yep.
I'm going to keep on this money track for a moment, because people never important. Talk about it.
Totally.
How Surfers Get Paid, one of the best shows on Stab. I don't know if you've ever seen this.
Yes.
So good.
I have.
But it's real, like, right? It's like why more creators don't get to create.
Yeah, we have to demystify how this really works.
Totally.
100%.
So what was the next chunk that you were able to get to have this thing come along?
Okay, so I think it was $5,000 from Angel City Sports. I think we got another 2 to 3 from another nonprofit called the Paralyzed Veterans Association. And also, Angela had personal connections with these. So that does move the needle a lot. Gosh, I feel like it may have been a couple other private donations. We're still talking in the low thousands here, nothing crazy. And then we did a crowdfunding campaign that got another 10K-ish. So by the time, you know, she was about ready to launch, I think we had earned just shy of like 20K. And that was a lot of money for me at the time to do a documentary when you have amazing friends with top tier talent from film school, and you own all your own gear. It's like, great, we got money in the bank, we can do this. Let's order t-shirts next. Wait to do the t-shirts.
A party. When you're 22,
always wait to do the t-shirts.
When you're 22, $20,000 is $1 million.
It's a lot of money. You can make that go so far.
$20,000, that's $1 million.
I still don't know how people's films cost that much. People tell me it costs them $1 million plus to make something. I'm like, what the hell did you spend that on? It's staggering to me.
Right.
But so about that amount, and that probably would have done it. I mean, we would have tried to raise a little bit more after her row for post-production and music and all that. But at that point, my hope was, okay, if Angela's gonna do this, she's gonna pull it off. This is gonna be, now we gotta work PR. We gotta really make sure there's a lot of good, meaningful press attention on this, because that's what I can bring into a Yeti or a Patagonia or a brand. Hold on, rewind. Another very important thing that I learned to do is those brand relationships. So I got a lot of sponsorships. You cannot underestimate the power of swag. So Avasol sunscreen, Chris, very dear friend of mine, gave us God knows how much sunscreen that we were able to raffle off and like do little prizes, and Aloha bags, Garmin, Iridium. I cannot even think, Kaloa rum. Like, the list goes on. We hit up every brand possible. Of course, we're asking for money, but very rarely are they going to give you money. So happily, we will accept any kind of donations. Hydro Flask gave us like 300 bottles. I mean, this was really useful for us to run a crowdfunding campaign. And it helps elevate your project a bit too when you can create those brand connections, and it opens the door for, okay, when Angela gets across the ocean, I'm going to come back to Hydro Flask and see, are they available to help me co-produce this film now, and so on and so forth. So you just start to creak the door open at as many possible relevant companies. I think brand support is still to this day one of the most relevant ways to get financing for any creative endeavor.
Mm-hmm.